There are a few things that I'll be expecting that you already know before taking this course. And the first thing is HTML and CSS. This is basically the foundation of web development. So I'll be assuming that you have created at least one website with HTML and CSS. Another thing that I'll be assuming that you already know is the JavaScript basics. So you know about the different data types in JavaScript. You know about variables in JavaScript. That means that you know the difference between let, var, and const. You know about objects, arrow functions, arrays and array methods, and loops. I'll also be assuming that you know about the modern JavaScript, that is ES6 features, things like destructuring, spread operator, template literals, and modules. I'll also be assuming that you know about React basics. You know about components in React, JSX, state, props, and hooks. So this course is mainly about Next.js, and you don't need to know anything about Next.js while taking this course because I'll teach you everything from scratch and we'll move on to building the full stack application. So if you don't know any of this stuff, I recommend that you take some crash courses on them before taking this course. So in the next video, we will check the difference between React and Next.js and why we will be using Next.js to build up our application. In this video, we will go through some of the key differences between React and Next.js, and we will be seeing why we are choosing to use Next.js over just React. To begin with, React is good for front-end development only, and if you need to work on the backend, you will need a separate setup. For example, Node.js, or might need to use a different programming language like Python or Go and so on. But when it comes to Next.js, it supports full stack development where we have built-in API routes and server actions. Although we have React server components in React, you will need extra setup for server-side rendering. But with Next.js, we have the inbuilt support for server-side rendering, and we can use the React server components easily in Next.js. Server-side rendering is so important because it's good for SEO and performance. So the application will be more fast, and also it will rank higher on Google because the content will be rendered from the server. And the other point is that if we want to optimize stuff in React, things like images or fonts, we will need to perform some manual optimizations. But with Next.js, it's optimized out of the box with image and font optimizations and even caching. Another reason why we might need to make use of Next.js is because React does not have inbuilt routing, and if you need routing in React, you need to use external libraries like React Router. But with Next.js, we have that inbuilt file-based routing system. So we'll be seeing the folder structure of creating the different routes in Next.js. So in general, React is a JavaScript library that focuses on building reactive and reusable UI components, where Next.js is a full-stack React framework with built-in tools for production-ready apps. And with the Next.js, we will be able to use React components and other features of React. And on top of that, we get these extra features, like we will be able to work on our backend by making use of server actions and API routes. We will be able to render our content from the server. We are able to get these optimizations out of the box, like images, fonts, and caching. And we have many other features of Next.js which makes it suitable for creating our application. For us to create a new Next.js application, we first need to set up our development environment, and you can go to Next.js.org and then click on Get Started. I'll go to Installation, and from here you'll see that we will need some system requirements. The first thing that you will need is to have Node.js installed in your machine. The other thing that you need here is an operating system, macOS, Windows, or Linux. I'll be assuming that you already have that set up in your machine. And then to check if you have Node.js installed in your machine, you need to go to your machine terminal. So I'll go to the search here, and what I'll do, I'll say cmd. This is for Windows to open the command prompt, which is the terminal for Windows. Once I open it like this, I can say node space -v, hit enter, and that will give me a version of Node that I am using. If you don't see a version here, that means that you don't have Node.js installed in your machine, and you will need to download and install Node.js in your machine. If this version is less than 18.18, you'll also need to download and install Node.js in your machine. So to download Node.js, just visit this link, which will take us to nodejs.org. And from here, you'll be able to download and install Node.js in your machine. Another thing that we will need to create our application is a code editor. And in this entire course, I'll be making use of Visual Studio Code, which is my preferred code editor. And if you want to have the same experience as me, I highly recommend it. But you can still use any other which you are comfortable with. So all you need to do is to download and install Visual Studio Code on your machine. Now let's go ahead and create our new Next.js application. So still on installation, if I scroll down here, you'll see we have this one command which we can run to create our application, and then we'll just answer a few questions. But we also have a manual way of creating our application where we install things step by step. Remember, Next.js is a framework that is built on top of React. So during manual installation, you'll also install React and React DOM. But I don't want to stress you with this long process. So just come right here, copy this command like that. And then here, I am already on a folder which I created. And what I'll do on Windows, I can click on this path. And then I'll type cmd, hit enter, and that will open the terminal on that particular path where we have this folder for our project. And right here, I'll just include this particular command. I'll paste it, the one that we copied, and this will create a Next.js application using the latest version of Next.js. And currently, the latest version is version 15. So in future, we will be having newer versions, and for you to be able to follow this course without issues, I will recommend that you use the version that I am currently using during this course, because there can be breaking changes in future, and I don't want you to face a lot of issues while taking this course. So what I'll do here is that I'll change this command a little bit. I will remove latest and I'll specify the version of Next.js that I am using during this course. And I recommend that you run this command and use version 15.1.4 so that during the course you will not face breaking changes because of the version. So go ahead and hit enter. Here you can give your project a name and it will be now inside this web dev blog. But if I want to make web dev blog to be the name of my project, I'll just use a period or a full stop and hit enter. So that will take the name of that folder as the name of the project. Would you like to use TypeScript? And I'll say yes, I'll be using TypeScript. Do you want to use ESRint? And I'll say yes. Do you want to use TailwindCSS? And I will say yes. Would you like your code inside the SRC directory? And I'll say no, which is the default. Would you like to use the app router recommended? I'll say yes. So this is the latest version of Next.js where we use app router instead of pages. In this case, we will be having an app folder. So I'll go ahead and say yes. Would you like to use Turbo Pack for Next Dev? I can say yes. Would you like to customize the import alias? I'll actually say yes. So this just shortens the import path. You'll see it in action when we are coding our application. So I'll say yes. What import alias would you like to configure? I'll say 8, so I'll just hit enter. Just like that, this will start creating our application and it will install the different dependencies. So I'll wait for this to complete the installation and then we will proceed. So now our application have been created. What I'll do is that I'll open now this application with Visual Studio Code. If you are using Visual Studio Code, you will be able to use this command to open the application. Say code space and a period or a full stop and then hit enter, and that will open that particular folder on Visual Studio Code. And here it is. If you are not able to open like that, what you can do is to open Visual Studio Code first, and then I think you can go here, go to file, and you can open folder. If you click open folder, you'll be able to navigate to the location of your folder which have the project, and then open it with Visual Studio Code. But I like using this short code here to open that project on Visual Studio Code. I can just go ahead and close that command prompt now. And from here, we will have a terminal here, and I can say new terminal. So if we need to install any other dependencies or run our application, I will be making use of this particular terminal here. For now, all I want to check is the package.json file. Here we have some scripts, and to start the application, we can use this dev command. And this is how we run that command. We can say npm run dev, and if I hit enter, this will start our Next.js application. And now right here, you'll see it is running on localhost 3000. So hit Control and then click on this link, and now that will open our application on your default browser. And just like that, we have been able to create our Next.js application with this default page. What I want us to do in this video is to explore some of the different files, and we will start with this app folder. If I happen to expand the app folder and then click on layout.tsx, you scroll at the bottom here, you'll notice here is where we are creating a component called RootLayout, and this component is basically the start of our application. And right here you can see we have children which we are receiving as props here, and these children is basically the different pages that will be available in our application. Currently, we only have one page, and below our layout.tsx file, you'll see that we have page.tsx file. This page.tsx file is our home page, and we are exporting a component called home, and all this content here is what we are currently seeing on our browser. So we can confirm that by checking the browser. Here we have get started by editing, and you'll see that we have it here, get started by editing. Save and see your changes, save and see your changes. So all this content that we have here is what we are having on the screen, and it is being styled by using TailwindCSS. So we'll be exploring TailwindCSS as we move on. But for now, what we can do is to change everything that we have on this page. I can remove the entire of this div, which is at our return, and right here I can return my own div, and I can say hello world. I will remove the import of this image because we are not using it. Save that file. Once I save, you'll notice that this page will update, and all we will have is hello world. Now at our layout, right here we are exporting an object called metadata. These metadata object have some basic information about this particular page. For example, we have the title of the page, and that shows at the tab there, and we can happen to edit these. Right now it's create next app, but we can say web dev blog. I go ahead and save, and that will update right here to web dev blog. We have the description, and we can also update that. Another thing that we can do is to set up a favicon, an icon that will show at the top there. So what I'll do, I'll come right here and I'll say Lucid icons. I can search. I will say notes, and I'll take this first one. I'll come here and I'll copy the SVG. I can minimize everything there. Then I'll go to public, and basically I'll delete all these files. So I will hit Control, select those files, and then Shift delete to permanently delete them. Inside public, I'll now add a new file, and I can call this one logo.svg. I'll hit enter, and I'll paste what I copied from our Lucid icons. So I'll paste, and we get this SVG. Now I can be able to change the color for this particular SVG. Stroke, instead of current color, I'll say orange. So look for stroke, and say orange, and I will go ahead and save that file. If I come to layout here, I can specify a favicon right here. I'll say icons full colon. Right here I'll say icon full colon will be available at stroke logo.svg. Next.js will be wise enough to check that logo at the public folder. So once we say that icons is at this path, Next.js will look for that particular file at the public folder and it will pick up our logo.svg right here. Now, another thing that we need to do for this to work out is to come to this favicon and delete it. Actually, right now it already updated like this, but I'll still go ahead and delete this favicon like that. And you can see we now have this notes icon, which is orange. Still at the layout, we will explore fonts in the next one. So for now, note that this layout is the beginning of our application. We have the metadata object for title, description, and icons. And then we have this page, which is the home page. Next.js 15 have built-in support for Google Fonts and font optimizations. And in this episode, I want us to see how we can get to add our own fonts in our Next.js application. At the moment, you can already see how we are importing fonts from Google Fonts. We import the font from Next/font/Google. And you can make use of any Google font and import it right here. To check the name of the font that you want, you can just browse fonts.google.com. So these are the names that you can import, and you can also search for fonts. And in this case, I want us to make use of Poppins. So to import Poppins, this is the name of the font that we will specify right here. I'll go ahead and remove these ones, and I will import Poppins from Next/font/Google, and then I will remove one of these right here. I'll call Poppins as a function, so I'll just say Poppins, and Poppins expects us to add something else, which is the font weight. So here I'll go ahead and say weight full colon, and I specify the different font weights that I want. In this case, I'll be using font weight of 400. And then for the bold font, I'll be using font weight of 700. And after doing that, you can see the error is gone. Another thing that we need to do is to specify a variable for our font. And in this case, I'll just say that the variable here is Poppins. Now we need to make use of this Poppins so that it's applied in our website. And we'll do it just at the bottom here at the body. So all we need to do is to remove one of these because we no longer need two, and then right here I'll just say Poppins. So we are reading this as a JavaScript variable like that. So we are saying that the font will be Poppins.variable, and then it will know that we are using this Poppins font, and it will be applied in the entire of our website. Then this particular class name is used in CSS to smoothen the font or make it look better. So don't worry about that. This file looks a bit different because we have some imports which you don't have because this is later on in the course, and when editing the video for the fonts, I realized something, that right here we didn't change the variable name for our Poppins font. Even though the font works, it's a good thing that we maintain a similar name for our font here. So here it's a good thing if we say font Poppins, and this variable can then be used in CSS, and it will be easier to understand which font you used. Although we won't really be using it because we'll work on TailwindCSS, and also all our application will be in Poppins font, I think it's a good thing to specify that. Now, in the next video, I'll be showing you how you can create a CN function, which would be really helpful when working with TailwindCSS. So I'll see you in the next one. We will be using TailwindCSS to style our application, and in this episode, I want us to create a utility function that will be really helpful when working with TailwindCSS. We call this function CN function. It will help us to combine Tailwind classes and also to conditionally render them. For us to create that function, there are two packages that I want us to install, and the first one is this package, and then you can specify the version like this, and then the other package that we will use is this Tailwind merge, and then you specify the version like this. So we use this CLSX package in conditionally rendering of the Tailwind classes, and then we use Tailwind merge to resolve conflicts or remove redundancy with our class names. And when creating the CN function, we'll basically be combining the functionality of this particular package and this particular package. So go ahead and hit enter and install those two packages. Once it's complete, you can go at the root of the application and add a new folder. We will call this folder lib. Hit enter, and then inside the lib, I'll add a new file and I'll call it utils.ts. and I'll hit enter. We will import both of the packages that we installed. So I'll say import CLSX, and this will be coming from our package CLSX. And another thing that we will bring in from this CLSX package is a type of class value like that. And then right here, I'll go ahead and import TW merge, standing for Tailwind merge. TW merge will basically be coming from Tailwind merge. And then right here, I'll go ahead and create a function, and I'll make sure that I export it from this utils file. So I'll say export function cn. I will invoke that function, and then right here, we will be returning something. This function will be able to receive the different class names. We will bring them as inputs, and we'll give these inputs the type. So the type of inputs will be class value, and it will be an array like that. So just do it like this. Basically, we will receive the different class names right here. And then right here, we will return TW merge. We invoke it. We'll pass CLSX in Tailwind merge, and we'll also invoke this CLSX, and we'll say inputs. And we can now use this cn function to write the class name here, where we are adding these pop-ins, and you'll see how easy it is to use the cn function. First of all, I'll copy this one here, copy, then I will remove the content that is in here, and I will call cn. Make sure to import this cn. You can click here and say control space and click on this option, and it will import it from libutils. And then in here, we can pass now the class name that I copied like that. So you can see there I use quote, and then I pass the class name. Now to combine this class name with that of popins, I can just say here comma, and here I'll say popins.variable. Just like that. Through this cn function, we are able to also conditionally render classes. This is how we could conditionally render. If we have something that is true or gives us true, we can say end, and we do something. For example, we can say bg red and then hyphen 300. So this is with the help of CLSX that our cn function is able to conditionally render this class, and this will be really helpful as we move forward. Now, if it's false, it will not display it. If it's true, it will display it. So we don't need this. This is just to show you that we can do something like that. And for now, we are able to just use cn function for both functionality, combine classes, and also to conditionally render them. As I said before, we will be using TailwindCSS to style our application. And if you don't know anything about TailwindCSS, you don't need to worry. The only thing that I expect is that you are good in CSS, because if you already know CSS very well, then TailwindCSS is so easy to get started with. And TailwindCSS will just be using a bunch of classes, and then the styles will be applied directly. So we don't need to create the various CSS files, okay? We will be using classes like flex, bg, straight 100 to set background color, rounded to set a border radius, w is width, h is height. So these classes are actually so straightforward, and you can already guess what they are doing. And if you want to know about any class or how to do a certain thing, I highly recommend the TailwindCSS documentation. So you can go to TailwindCSS.com, and if you go to docs here, you just search, for example, adding a padding. So you can just say padding like that, and then you click on padding here, and you'll see to add a padding, you just say PT, and then you set the size of the padding that you want. So PT is padding top, padding right, padding bottom, padding left, or you just say P for padding or round. If you wanted to add margin, you just say margin, and then you click on margin there, and you already see how we can add some margin. Margin left, margin top, margin bottom, margin right, or just M for margin all around. MX is margin around the x-axis, MY margin along the y-axis. So this is top and bottom, this is left and right. So this is very easy to work with. And the good thing is that when creating our Next.js app, TailwindCSS was already automatically configured in our application, and all you need to do is to start using it. So if you check at your application here, you'll already see we have these files, tailwindconfig.ts, which was created when we were creating our app. We also have this postcss.config file where we set up TailwindCSS as a plugin. We also have at our app, then you go to growboss.css, we have these directives which are so useful for our Tailwind CSS. You can remove this code here and you remain with these Tailwind CSS directives, because this is all we need to work with Tailwind CSS. And you don't need to even touch these files at the moment. All we will do for now is to make use of the class names that are available to style our app. Now, once we remove those styles from growboss.css and you save that file, and then you make sure that your app is running. So here npm run dev, hit enter, and you go to localhost 3000. This background color should be removed. Okay, so we have already this black background color, it should be gone. And let's make sure it's running, and we happen to refresh our app here, and there we go, you can see it's removed. And now we can test if our Tailwind CSS is working by making use of those Tailwind classes. So go to layout, and then just right here after this one, space, and you can say bg hyphen red hyphen 500. And you can see the way I'm getting these suggestions. For you, for now, I think you will not get them, but I'll show you how you can get them. For now, just write this bg red and then 500. Make sure there is hyphen between them and save. So this is adding a background color. And if I come here, you can see we have that background color applied. So we can say text, let it be red, and then you can see we have different shades of red depending on the value that we specify, 50, 100, 200. So let's say 100, and that will apply the text color of that particular color, and there we go. So it's not so clear, not unless we use a different one like blue, and then we make it to be more visible like 500, and I save. And if I come here now, you'll see this color is blue. And this is how we easily make use of Tailwind CSS. So to get those suggestions, you'll need to add a plugin. Go to this particular icon. I believe yours should be on the left here. You click on that icon that look like this for extensions. Then you will search right here for Tailwind IntelliSense. So let me look for that particular extension that I have already installed. This one here. You will search for Tailwind CSS IntelliSense. You install. Once you install, it should already work. If it doesn't, I recommend that you close your Visual Studio Code and then open it again. You can now come here and you try the different things. You can try to add padding. If I say P hyphen, you can see that is padding, padding top hyphen. So that is all about Tailwind CSS and how we will be using it. So I'll remove all those styles and I'll save. And now in the next video, we can start working on our navbar. And we will be styling our navbar by making use of Tailwind CSS.